Elizabeth was a bright and courageous 7-year-old girl who lived in a small village surrounded by thick forests and rolling hills. She was known for her kindness and bravery, despite her young age. Her grandmother, a well-respected herbalist, had taught her the importance of herbs and how they could heal wounds and sickness. One afternoon, Elizabeth's grandmother sent her to the bush to gather some special herbs for medicine. It was something she had done many times before, so she wasn't afraid. She carefully picked the leaves and roots her grandmother needed, placing them in the small woven basket she carried. Just as she was about to head back home, she suddenly heard a strange sound. It was faint at first, but as she listened closely, she realized it was someone crying. At first, she thought it was an animal trapped in the bush. A part of her wanted to run back home, but something inside her told her to go and check. Slowly, she moved deeper into the forest, pushing aside thick branches. Then she saw her, a woman lying on the ground, covered in bruises, crying weakly for help. Her clothes were torn, and she looked like she had been attacked. Elizabeth's heart ached at the sight. She quickly stepped closer and bent down. "Don't worry, madam. You won't die. I can't carry you, but I will go and get help," she promised, her voice filled with determination. Without wasting a second, she turned and ran as fast as her little legs could carry her. She needed to find someone strong enough to help the wounded woman. As she ran, she suddenly spotted a tall man standing near the village pathway. He was a well-known warrior in the village, known for his strength and bravery. "Sir, please help. There is a woman in the bush, and she is badly wounded," Elizabeth cried, struggling to catch her breath. The warrior's face became serious. "Where is she?" he asked immediately. Elizabeth pointed in the direction of the bush. Without hesitation, the warrior followed her, his spear tightly gripped in his hand. When they reached the woman, the warrior didn't waste time. He carefully lifted her onto his back and carried her toward the village. Elizabeth led the way, running ahead to her grandmother's hut. Her grandmother was already outside, crushing some herbs when she saw them approaching. She gasped when she saw the injured woman. "Bring her inside quickly," she commanded. The warrior gently placed the woman on a mat, while Elizabeth's grandmother immediately started preparing her special herbal medicine. Elizabeth watched anxiously as her grandmother worked quickly, crushing leaves and mixing them with healing oils. The woman groaned in pain. "Who did this to you?" Elizabeth asked, her voice firm. Tears rolled down the woman's cheeks. They were after me. They think I know something," she whispered weakly. Elizabeth's grandmother looked up sharply. "Who is after you?" she asked. The woman swallowed hard, struggling to stay awake. "Men, strangers, dangerous men," she muttered. Elizabeth felt a chill run down her spine. Who were these men, and why did they want to hurt this woman? The days passed, and little by little, Madame Rebecca grew stronger. Elizabeth's grandmother took care of her every day, applying herbal medicines to her wound and giving her healing teas to drink. The bullet wound that once threatened her life was now just a faint scar. She could now walk without pain, eat properly, and even help around the hut. Elizabeth had grown fond of Madame Rebecca. The woman always told her stories about the city, how the buildings were so tall they almost touched the sky, how the roads were always busy with cars and people rushing everywhere, and how at night the city lights shined like stars. Elizabeth listened with wide eyes, imagining a place so different from her quiet village. She had never left the village before, but the way Madame Rebecca described the city made it sound like a magical place. One evening, as they all sat outside, Madame Rebecca turned to Elizabeth's grandmother. "Mama, I cannot thank you enough for saving my life. If not for you and Elizabeth, I would be dead by now." Elizabeth's grandmother waved her hand. "Do not mention it, my child. We do not help people because we want something in return. We do it because it is the right thing to do." "But I must do something for you," Madame Rebecca insisted. "I cannot just leave like this without showing my gratitude. I promise I will come back in 2 weeks with my people to thank you properly, and I will not come empty-handed." Elizabeth's grandmother shook her head and smiled. "We do everything for God, my daughter. You do not need to trouble yourself." But Madame Rebecca was determined. She turned to Elizabeth and held her little hands. "My dear Elizabeth, I will bring you something special from the city. You have been like a daughter to me these past weeks, and I will never forget your kindness." Elizabeth's eyes brightened. "Thank you, Madame Rebecca." But please, tell me one thing before you go. Who shot you? And why did they want to hurt you?" Madame Rebecca's face darkened, and she let out a deep sigh. "It is a long story, my dear child. There are dangerous men in the city, men who will do anything for money and power. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time and saw something I was not supposed to see. They tried to silence me." Elizabeth shivered. "Will they come back for you?" "No," Madame Rebecca assured her. "They think I am dead. But I must be careful. That is why I must return to the city quietly and lay low for some time." Elizabeth's grandmother nodded. "Go in peace, my daughter, but be careful." The next morning, Madame Rebecca packed her few belongings, and Elizabeth's grandmother handed her a small pouch of money for transportation. "You have already done so much for me." "I should not take your money," Madame Rebecca protested. "Take it, my child. The road is long, and you will need it," the old woman insisted. Madame Rebecca finally accepted it with gratitude. She turned and hugged Elizabeth tightly. "Take care of yourself, little one. I will be back soon." Elizabeth smiled and waved as Madame Rebecca walked away, disappearing down the village path toward the main road that led to the city. 2 days later, the once lively hut now felt like a place of sorrow. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs, yet nothing seemed to be working. Elizabeth's grandmother, the strongest woman she had ever known, lay on her mat, her body frail, her breath shallow. Elizabeth sat beside her, holding her hand, her small fingers wrapped tightly around the old woman's weak ones. Tears filled her young eyes as she watched her grandmother struggle to breathe. She had never seen her like this before, so helpless, so close to the end. The other herbalists in the village had tried everything, but nothing worked. The strongest medicines, the most powerful herbs, and the deepest prayers could not stop what was coming. Her grandmother knew it. Elizabeth refused to believe it. "Mama, please don't leave me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, you will get better. I will go to the forest now. I will find the best herbs, I promise. You have healed so many people. I will heal you too." Her grandmother managed a weak smile, her hand moving slightly to touch Elizabeth's cheek. "My child, come closer. I have something to tell you." Elizabeth sniffled, wiping her tears with the back of her hand as she leaned in. The old woman took a shaky breath. "Elizabeth, there is something I have kept from you all these years. Something you must know before I leave this world." Elizabeth's heart pounded. "No, Mama, don't say that. You are not leaving. I will not let you." Her grandmother's eyes, though dim with age, were filled with love as she spoke. "My daughter, you have always known me as your mother, but I am not." Elizabeth frowned, confused. "What do you mean? Of course you are my mother. You raised me." Her grandmother let out a deep sigh. "I raised you, yes, but I did not give birth to you." Elizabeth's heart felt like it stopped. She could not breathe. Her grandmother continued, her voice weaker now. "Your real mother. She was my only daughter. She was young when she had you, only 17. She was not ready to be a mother. The day you were born, she placed you in my arms, turned her back and ran to the city. She never returned." Elizabeth's lips trembled. "She abandoned me." A tear slipped from her grandmother's eye. "Yes, my child, she left and never looked back. I sent messages to her, but she never replied. Then I heard she got married in the city and started a new life." Elizabeth's body shook with silent cries. She had always wondered why she had no father, why no one else in the village called her daughter, except for her grandmother. Now she knew why. "She never loved me." Elizabeth's voice broke. Her grandmother's voice cracked as she answered, "I do not know, my child. But she is your mother, and I do not want you to grow up without knowing where you come from." The old woman coughed weakly, her body trembling with every breath. With the last bit of strength she had, she reached under her mat and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. She placed it in Elizabeth's hands. "This is her address," she whispered. "If I do not make it, I want you to go to the city and find her. Tell her who you are. Tell her I have gone, and I do not want you to be alone in this world." Elizabeth sobbed, shaking her head furiously. "No, Grandma. You will not die. I don't want to find her. I don't need her. I only want you." Her grandmother's hands were shaking now. Promise me, my child, that you will go." Elizabeth sobbed harder, refusing to answer. "Elizabeth," her grandmother whispered, her voice so faint it was almost gone. Elizabeth panicked. She grabbed her grandmother's hands, shaking them. "No, Mama, please don't leave me. Don't go. You are all I have. Who will take care of me? Who will call me their daughter?" Tears ran down Elizabeth's small face as she clung onto her grandmother's frail body. "I will not let you go. Please wait for me. I am going to find herbs. Mama, please hold on. I am coming back." She grabbed her small basket and ran out of the hut, her feet hitting the ground so hard that dust flew in the air. She didn't care how dark the forest was becoming. She had to save her grandmother. She had to try. Elizabeth ran as fast as her little legs could carry her, her heart pounding with fear and desperation. She clutched the small basket in her hands, her mind filled with only one thought. She had to save her grandmother. She pushed through the thick forest, ignoring the branches that scratched her arms. Her feet were bare, her dress torn, but she didn't stop. Finally, she reached the spot where she knew the healing herbs grew. She knelt down quickly, her hands trembling as she picked them. "These will work. They have to work," she whispered to herself, her tears falling onto the leaves. With the basket full, she turned and ran back to the village, ignoring the burning pain in her legs. But when she reached the hut, she froze. Something was wrong. The air was too still, the hut was too quiet. Her heart raced. "Mama," she called, stepping inside. Her eyes landed on her grandmother's frail body, lying still on the mat. Her eyes were closed. Her hands rested gently on her chest. Elizabeth dropped the basket. She rushed to her grandmother's side, shaking her gently. "Mama, Mama, I am back. I found the herbs. You will be fine now." But there was no answer. She shook her harder, her hands trembling. "Mama, wake up. Please wake up. I went to the forest. I did everything you taught me. Please open your eyes." Still, there was no answer. Elizabeth placed her ear to her grandmother's chest. No heartbeat, no breath, nothing. Her body turned cold. Her lips trembled as her young mind tried to understand what had just happened. Her grandmother, her mother, her protector, her world, was gone. Elizabeth let out a heartbreaking cry, shaking her grandmother's lifeless body. "Mama, please, don't leave me. I have no one. Please wake up." Her small body shook with sobs. "Mama, I promise I will be good. I will do everything you say. Just don't go. Please, Mama, please." She hugged her grandmother's lifeless body tightly, rocking back and forth. "You said I should find my mother, but I don't want her. I only want you. Please, Mama, come back." But her grandmother was gone. The whole village gathered to bury the woman who had healed them, loved them, and cared for them. The air was heavy with sorrow, but none was heavier than the pain in Elizabeth's small heart. She stood by the grave, watching as the men covered her grandmother's body with soil. Each handful of dirt felt like a piece of her heart being buried. When it was over, she fell to her knees. "Mama, why did you leave me?" she cried. "Who will take care of me now? Who will love me?" Her cries echoed through the village, but no one had an answer. One by one, the villagers walked away, leaving Elizabeth alone by the grave. She sat there until the sun began to set, refusing to move. Her stomach ached from hunger, but the pain in her heart was worse. Finally, a village elder came to her. "Elizabeth, my child, you have to stop crying." She wiped her tears and looked up with hopeful eyes. "Will you take me in?" she asked. The elder looked away. I already have many mouths to feed, my child." Elizabeth's heart sank. She turned to another woman. "Please, let me stay with you. I will work hard, I promise." The woman sighed, shaking her head. "We are struggling too, Elizabeth. We cannot take another child." One by one, she begged. One by one, they all refused. Nobody wanted her. She was truly alone. That night, she slept outside her grandmother's hut, her arms wrapped around herself, tears soaking her face. She had lost everything. The next morning, Elizabeth sat alone, staring at the small folded paper in her hands. Her grandmother's last words echoed in her mind. "Find your mother. You must find your mother." She had no choice. She had nowhere else to go. With a heavy heart, she stood up and walked to the village chief's house. "Please, sir," she said softly, "can you help me find my way to the city? I need to find my mother." The chief looked at her with pity. He sighed and called a trader who often traveled to the city. "Take her with you," he instructed. The man agreed. Elizabeth turned back to her grandmother's hut one last time. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Goodbye, Mama. I will miss you forever." Then, with nothing but the clothes on her back and the small paper in her hands, she climbed onto the trader's motorcycle and left the only home she had ever known. She was going to the city, to find the mother who abandoned her. After what felt like forever, they finally arrived in the city. Elizabeth's eyes widened as she looked around. The noise, the tall buildings, the rushing cars, it was nothing like her village. People moved so fast, barely looking at one another. The air smelled different. She felt so small, so lost. But she had to be brave. The trader dropped her off at a street corner. "This is the area you are looking for," he said. "Ask around and someone will show you the house." Elizabeth nodded, holding back tears. "Thank you, sir." She held the address tightly. She walked to a shopkeeper nearby. "Please, sir, do you know this place?" she asked, showing him the paper. The man looked at her, then at the address. "Oh yes, just walk straight, turn right, and you will see a blue gate. That is the house." Elizabeth's hands shook. This was it. She took a deep breath and walked. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest. When she finally reached the blue gate, she stopped. She stared at it for a long time, fear creeping into her heart. What if she does not recognize me? What if she tells me to leave? Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away. She had come too far to turn back now. With a shaky hand, she knocked on the gate. There was silence. Then, after a moment, the gate opened slightly and a woman stepped out. Elizabeth froze. The woman looked beautiful but tired. She had soft brown eyes, just like Elizabeth's, but those eyes were filled with surprise and something else, guilt. For a long time they just stared at each other. Then, with a trembling voice, Elizabeth whispered, "Mama, it's me, Elizabeth." Her mother gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. Tears immediately filled her eyes. She took a step forward, her lips trembling. "Elizabeth, my daughter." Elizabeth nodded, her own tears spilling down her cheeks. Her mother let out a shaky breath, then suddenly pulled Elizabeth into a tight embrace. "My child, my child, oh my God." She sobbed into Elizabeth's hair, holding her as if she would never let go. Elizabeth wanted to stay strong, but she couldn't. She broke down, crying into her mother's arms. "Mama, why did you leave me? You never came back. You never looked for me." Her mother pulled back slightly, cupping Elizabeth's face in her hands. "I know, my child, I know, and I am so sorry. I have made so many mistakes. I have hurt you. I have failed you." Elizabeth looked into her mother's eyes, searching for answers. "Didn't you love me?" Her mother choked on her tears. "I did. I always did. But I was young, foolish, and scared. I thought I couldn't take care of you, so I ran. But I never forgot you, Elizabeth. Every day I thought about you. Every night I cried, wondering if you were safe." Elizabeth wiped her tears. "Then why didn't you come back for me?" Her mother sobbed. "Because I was ashamed. I thought you would hate me. I thought your grandmother would never forgive me." Elizabeth's heart squeezed at the mention of her grandmother. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "She waited for you, Mama. She wanted me to find you." Her mother's knees weakened, and she fell to the ground, crying. "Oh, Mama. Mama, I am so sorry. I should have come back. I should have been there. She raised you all alone because of my selfishness. I will never forgive myself." Elizabeth knelt beside her mother, crying too. For a long time they just held each other, crying for the years they had lost, for the love that had been broken, for the pain they both carried. Then her mother pulled back and looked at her. "My child, I cannot change the past, but I swear to you I will never leave you again. From today, you are staying with me. I will be the mother you deserve." Meanwhile, Madame Rebecca sat in her luxurious living room, her hands gently resting on her lap, but her heart was restless. No matter how comfortable her home was, she couldn't forget the small village where her life had been saved. She couldn't forget the old woman who had nursed her back to health. And most of all, she couldn't forget the little girl with kind eyes, Elizabeth. She had promised to return in 2 weeks to reward them properly, but now she felt like she had waited too long. The people who had tried to kill her were now in prison. The danger was over. There was nothing stopping her from going back. She turned to her husband, who sat across from her. "My love, I cannot wait anymore. I have to go back to the village. I need to see that old woman and her granddaughter. They saved my life." Her husband lowered his newspaper, looking at her thoughtfully. "But why the rush? We agreed to wait for our son to return. He will be back in a few days." Madame Rebecca shook her head. "No, I cannot wait any longer. Something in my heart tells me that I need to go now, especially for that little girl. She deserves a better life." Her husband sighed. "Are you sure about this?" Madame Rebecca nodded firmly. "Yes, that child touched my heart. She reminds me of myself when I was young, alone, struggling, with no one to protect me. I won't let her suffer if I can help it." Seeing the determination in his wife's eyes, her husband finally gave in. "All right, if this is what you want, then let's go." The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Madame Rebecca and her husband set off for the village in their car. She was filled with excitement, imagining the look on Elizabeth's face when she saw her again. When Madame Rebecca and her husband arrived at the village, something felt different. The place was unusually quiet, and there was a strange heaviness in the air. She quickly made her way to Elizabeth's hut and knocked on the wooden door. "Elizabeth, Mama, it's me, Madame Rebecca. I have come back as I promised," she called, smiling. She knocked again. Silence. She frowned and knocked harder, but still no one answered. Her heart began to beat faster. Something was wrong. A man who had been sitting under a tree nearby saw them and slowly walked toward them. Madame Rebecca turned to him urgently. "Please, sir, do you know where the old woman and her granddaughter are? We have come to see them." The man sighed and looked down sadly. "Madam, I'm afraid you are too late." Madame Rebecca's heart dropped. "Too late? What do you mean?" The man hesitated for a moment before speaking. "The old woman, she is gone. She passed away a few days ago." Madame Rebecca gasped. No, it can't be." Her hands flew to her chest, and she felt tears fill her eyes. "I should have come earlier." Her husband placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, but the pain in her heart was unbearable. She turned back to the man, her voice shaking. "And what about the little girl, Elizabeth? Where is she?" The man sighed again. "That's the saddest part, madam. After the burial, nobody in the village agreed to take her in. She had no choice but to leave in search of her mother in the city." Madame Rebecca's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed her husband's arm for support. "No, not that poor child. She had already lost so much." The man shook his head. "If I had her mother's address, I would have given it to you. But I don't. She left alone, with only the hope that she would find her mother in the big city." Madame Rebecca closed her eyes, feeling her heart break into a million pieces. Poor little angel. I should have come earlier. She felt like she had failed Elizabeth. That child had saved her life, and yet when Elizabeth needed someone, there was no one to help her. She wiped her tears and looked at her husband. "We have to find her." Her husband nodded. "But how? We don't even know where she is." Madame Rebecca turned back to the man. "Did she leave anything behind? Any clue about where her mother might be?" The man shook his head. Only her grandmother knew the address. And now, she is gone. Madame Rebecca looked toward the hut, the place where Elizabeth had once laughed, played, and called home. Now it was empty, just like her heart. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I should have come earlier." With deep sadness, she and her husband walked back to their car. As they drove away from the village, Madame Rebecca looked out of the window, whispering, "Elizabeth, wherever you are, I will find you." Back in the city. Elizabeth sat in the living room, staring at the walls, her hands resting nervously on her lap. Everything about this house was different from her grandmother's hut in the village. The smooth, cold tiles, the bright electric lights, the heavy air filled with strange perfumes. But despite all its beauty, the house felt empty. She had found her mother, but something didn't feel right. There was no warmth in her mother's eyes, like the one she had seen in her grandmother's. Her mother was happy when she first saw her, but there was also something else. Fear. Then the front door slammed open. A tall man stepped in, dressed in fine clothes. He looked strong, with a sharp face and a thick beard. Elizabeth's heart started beating fast. The man froze when he saw her. His eyes darkened, and his expression changed from surprise to anger. "Who are you?" he asked sharply. Elizabeth opened her mouth, but no words came out. The man looked around, his face filled with suspicion. "What are you doing in my house?" Before Elizabeth could answer, he turned and walked straight to the bedroom. Elizabeth's mother was sitting on the bed, deep in thought. She had not yet told her husband about Elizabeth. She knew this moment would come, but she was not ready. Suddenly, the bedroom door burst open. Her husband stormed in, his face dark with anger. "Who is that girl in the living room?" he asked, his voice loud and sharp. Elizabeth's mother's heart jumped. She swallowed hard and looked up at him. "Darling, please calm down. I can explain." Her husband took a step closer, his eyes burning with fury. "Explain what exactly? I walked into my own house and found a stranger sitting in my living room." "Who is she?" She took a deep breath, knowing she had no choice but to tell the truth. She is my daughter," she said softly. Her husband's eyes widened. His mouth dropped open. "What? Your daughter?" he asked in shock. She nodded slowly. He took another step back, shaking his head. "But you told me she died during childbirth. That's what you said. You lied to me." Elizabeth's mother lowered her head. "I didn't know how to tell you." Her husband clenched his fists, his whole body shaking with anger. "You lied to me for years, and now you bring her here without telling me." "I was afraid," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "I thought if I told you, you would leave me." Her husband let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, so you decided to just hide a whole human being. And now, what do you expect me to do? Accept her." She wiped her tears and looked at him with pleading eyes. "She is my daughter. She has nowhere else to go." "I don't care," he shouted. "I will never accept another man's child in this house. Never." Elizabeth's mother gasped. "But she's just a child. She has suffered so much already. Please, just give me time to figure things out." Her husband's face grew even darker. "I don't want her here. It's either me or her." Elizabeth's mother felt like the ground had been pulled from under her. She had spent so many years building this life. She had worked so hard to find a man who could provide for her, a man who gave her comfort and stability. She looked down at her hands. They were soft and well manicured, no longer rough and tired like when she was poor. She had come too far to lose it all now. With tears in her eyes, she took a deep breath and whispered, "I can't lose my marriage." Her husband smiled. "Good, then get rid of her." Elizabeth sat on the couch, waiting. She had heard the shouting from the bedroom. She had heard her mother's voice shaking. She hoped, no, she prayed, that her mother would fight for her. But when her mother finally walked into the living room, her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She sat down beside Elizabeth and took her hands. "Elizabeth, my husband said you cannot stay here." Elizabeth froze, her small fingers trembled. "Mama." "No." Tears filled her eyes as she pulled her hands away. "Please don't throw me out. I have nowhere to go. I don't know anybody in this city." Her mother wiped a tear from her cheek. "I am sorry, my child, but I can't lose my marriage. This man takes care of me. He pays my bills. Everything was fine until you came." Elizabeth's eyes widened in shock. "Mama, are you blaming me?" Her mother didn't answer. Elizabeth fell to her knees, grabbing her mother's dress. "Mama, please, I lost Grandma. Please don't leave me again." Her mother pulled her hands away. "I'm sorry, Elizabeth." Then she stood up, walked to a drawer and pulled out a small piece of paper. She wrote something on it and handed it to Elizabeth. "This is the address of the man I think is your father. Go and look for him. And don't ever come back here again." Elizabeth's hands shook as she looked at the note. She looked back up at her mother. "Mama, it's late. Where will I go?" Her mother didn't answer. Elizabeth's voice cracked as she sobbed. "Mama, please, I am your daughter." Her mother turned away. "I'm sorry, Elizabeth." Then she opened the door and pushed Elizabeth outside. Before Elizabeth could say another word, her mother shut the door. Elizabeth stood outside, staring at the closed door. The wind was cold. The city was silent. Tears streamed down her face. "Mama, Please, she whispered, but no one answered. She looked around. The city was big and strange, the streets were empty, and the night was dark. She hugged herself tightly, shivering. She had nowhere to go. She clutched the small note in her hand, the address of the man her mother thought was her father. Her only hope, but deep inside she was terrified. What if he is not my father? What if he doesn't want me either? With heavy steps, Elizabeth started walking, her little voice whispering in the night. Mama, Grandma, somebody please help me. But nobody heard her. Elizabeth wandered through the streets, her feet aching from walking for hours. The night was getting colder, and her thin dress did nothing to protect her from the harsh wind. She was exhausted. She needed a place to rest. Then, in the distance, she saw an old, uncompleted building. The windows were broken, and the walls had cracks, but it was empty. At least, she could stay there for the night. With slow, tired steps, she made her way to the building and stepped inside. It was cold, dusty. The floor was rough, and there was nothing to cover herself with. But she had no choice. She curled up in a corner, hugging herself tightly. As she lay there, tears rolled down her cheeks. Grandma, I miss you. I wish you were here. Why did you leave me? She thought about her mother, about the moment she had pushed her out of the house. How could she throw me away like trash? Am I that worthless to her? Elizabeth buried her face in her hands, crying silently until sleep finally took her. When Elizabeth woke up, the sun was already rising. She stretched her weak body, her stomach growling with hunger. She walked out of the building and into the streets, looking around. She saw people going about their morning business, some selling fruits, others rushing to work. Her hands trembled. She had never begged before, but she had no choice. She saw a kind-looking woman standing near a small shop and approached her. Please, Ma, I am very hungry. Can you help me with some money? The woman looked at her curiously. Who are you, little girl? Where are your parents? Elizabeth hesitated, then she remembered the note in her hand. I am looking for someone, she said quickly. This address, do you know where it is? The woman took the paper, read it and nodded. Yes, I know this place. It's not far from here. Elizabeth's heart leaped. The woman signaled a young man nearby. Take this girl to this address, she said. The young man nodded and motioned for Elizabeth to follow him. Her heart pounded in her chest as they walked. Is he really my father? Will he accept me? When they finally reached the house, the young man pointed at it. This is the place. Elizabeth looked up at the house. It was big, beautiful. Her heart pounded even harder. She turned to thank the young man, but he was already walking away. Taking a deep breath, she walked up to the gate and knocked. Seconds passed. Then the door opened. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out. He was in his late 40s, with a strong face and piercing eyes. He frowned at Elizabeth. Yes, who are you? Elizabeth swallowed hard. Sir, my name is Elizabeth. The man looked at her confused. Elizabeth, I don't know any Elizabeth. Elizabeth took a deep breath and gathered her courage. My mother. She told me you might be my father. The man's eyes widened in shock. What? Elizabeth quickly explained everything, how her grandmother had died, how her mother had thrown her out, and how she had been given his address. When she finished, she looked up at him, hoping, praying that he would believe her. But instead the man took a step back. His face darkened with anger. This is nonsense, he said coldly. I don't have any daughter. Elizabeth felt her heart sink. But my mother said, Your mother, the man interrupted, his voice filled with disgust. Do you even know the kind of woman your mother was? She was nothing but a sharegiver, a woman who slept with different men when she was young. Elizabeth's breath caught in her throat. She was reckless, the man continued, shaking his head. And now, after all these years, she sends you to come and destroy my life. Elizabeth shook her head quickly. No, sir, The man raised a hand. Enough. I am happily married. I have my own family. I cannot let anybody ruin my marriage. Elizabeth's lips trembled. But I have nowhere else to go. The man folded his arms and studied her. Then he shook his head. You don't even look like me. You don't look like anyone in my family. Elizabeth's stomach twisted. "Sir, please, I just want to know where I belong." "You don't belong here," the man snapped. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "So, you won't accept me?" He pointed toward the street. "Go, and never come back here again." Elizabeth's whole body shook. "Sir, please, I have no one." "I don't care," he said coldly. "Leave before I call security." Elizabeth felt her legs go weak. She had come all this way, hoping, praying that she would find a home. But once again, she had been rejected. Tears streamed down her face as she turned around and started walking away. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know what she was going to do. All she knew was that she was truly alone. Meanwhile, back in Madame Rebecca's house, she sat in the living room, her hands folded in her lap. She had been restless ever since she returned from the village. The guilt of not arriving on time to help Elizabeth and her grandmother weighed heavily on her heart. If only she had come earlier, maybe the poor little girl wouldn't have had to suffer so much. Just then, the front door opened and her son Jackson stepped inside. He had just returned from his trip, looking fresh and relaxed. "Mother, I'm back," he announced as he walked toward her. Madame Rebecca stood up and hugged him. "Welcome home, my son. How was your trip?" "It was fine, Mama, but I can see something is bothering you," Jackson said, noticing the sadness in her eyes. "What's wrong?" Madame Rebecca sighed deeply and sat back down. "Jackson, something happened while you were away. I need to tell you." Jackson sat beside her. "What is it, Mama?" She took a deep breath and began telling him everything. How she had gone back to the village to thank the people who saved her life. How she had found out that the old woman had died, and how the little girl, Elizabeth, had been left alone with no one to take her in. Jackson listened carefully, his face growing serious. When his mother finished, he leaned back, shaking his head. "That poor girl," he muttered. Madame Rebecca wiped her eyes. "I should have gone earlier, Jackson. I should have been there to help her." Jackson placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mama, don't blame yourself. You didn't know this would happen." "But I feel like I failed her," Madame Rebecca said, her voice breaking. "She saved my life, and when she needed help the most, I wasn't there." Jackson sighed and rubbed his chin. "Where is she now?" Madame Rebecca shook her head. "Nobody knows. After her grandmother died, she left for the city to find her mother. But we don't even know where she is." Jackson was silent for a moment, then he looked at his mother with determination. "Don't worry, Mama. I will make sure she is found and rewarded. That little girl deserves a better life." Madame Rebecca's eyes filled with hope. "You will help me find her." Jackson nodded. "Yes, Mama. I promise." Madame Rebecca smiled for the first time in days. "Thank you, my son. You have a kind heart." Jackson stood up. "I'll start looking right away. But first I need to go out. I'll be back soon." Madame Rebecca watched as he grabbed his car keys and walked toward the door. "Be careful, my son." "I will, Mama," Jackson said before stepping out. Jackson got into his car and started the engine. He pulled out of the driveway and onto the busy city road. He had a lot on his mind. Thoughts of Elizabeth, how to find her, and what he would do once he did. As he drove, he barely noticed the people crossing the streets or the vehicles around him. His mind was elsewhere. Where could she be? A little girl, all alone in this big city. How will I even begin to find her? His grip tightened on the steering wheel as frustration built inside him. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a small figure dashed onto the road. Jackson's eyes widened in horror. He slammed the brakes, but it was too late. A sickening sound filled the air as the car hit the little figure. Jackson's heart nearly stopped. People on the street gasped and screamed, rushing toward the scene. Jackson's hands were shaking as he quickly unbuckled his seatbelt and jumped out of the car. His breath came in short, panicked gasps. Lying on the ground, motionless, was a small girl. Her dress was dirty, her skin bruised, and she looked frail, like she had been suffering for days. Jackson's heart pounded. No, no. Please, God, let her be alive. He rushed to her side, his hands trembling as he gently touched her shoulder. "Little girl, can you hear me?" She didn't move. People gathered around, murmuring in concern. Jackson felt a lump in his throat. What have I done? Dear viewers, if you're enjoying this story, stay tuned for part 2. There's more to come, and you don't want to miss how it all ends. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we upload the next part. Thanks for watching.